This video is all about cells and organelles. You have already learned about elements, which are the smallest unit of matter. We then talked about how a bunch of elements come together to form molecules. Specifically, if the molecules contain carbon, they are called organic molecules. When organic molecules come together in a particular way, they form cells. When cells come together, they form tissues. When tissues come together, they form organs. And finally, when organs come together, they form an organism. The video that we are discussing today is all about cells, how when organic molecules come together, they form cells. So what are cells? Cells are the smallest part of a living thing that are still considered alive. Cells make up all living things. Cells contain DNA. Cells can produce and use ATP. Cells can reproduce, meaning you can make more cells. Cells are very, very small. You need a microscope, which is in the background of this slide, to be able to see any cells. There are a variety of cells on Earth, but every single cell has four things in common. All cells have a plasma or a cell membrane. Those words are the same. Plasma membrane or cell membrane, they mean the exact same thing. All cells have cytoplasm. All cells have ribosomes, and all cells have DNA. You have to know these four things that are common throughout every single cell on Earth. If you take all the cells on Earth, you can divide them in two different types. One type of cell is called a prokaryotic cell. The other type of cell is called a eukaryotic cell. Prokaryotic cells are really, really small cells and are considered pretty simple in relation to eukaryotic cells. They do not have a nucleus. They do not have membrane-bound organelles. This question is always asked on my tests, is always asked on the MCAS. Do prokaryotic cells have a nucleus? Do they have membrane-bound organelle? No. No. That's how I remember it. Prokaryotic cells, no. They do not have a nucleus. They do not have membrane-bound organelles. An example of a prokaryotic cell would be bacteria. You've heard of bacteria before, E. coli, Salmonella. You probably heard of them in context of making you sick. Well, there are many good bacteria out there, but bacteria in general are called prokaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells are much larger than prokaryotic cells and are more complex. They do have a nucleus. They do have many organelles. So notice in red, prokaryotic cells don't have a nucleus, don't have membrane-bound organelles, yet eukaryotic cells do. Examples of eukaryotic cells would be plants and animal cells. The way that you can remember this is eukaryotic cells is just like the word you. You are an animal, therefore you are a eukaryotic cell. Prokaryotes and eukaryotes can perform all the same functions. Eukaryotes just tend to be a little more efficient. I like to think of them as two different homes. Prokaryotes are like a studio apartment where the entire home is in one room. The bed, the kitchen, the TV, etc. are all together in one room. Eukaryotes are like a mansion. They have a few kitchens, maybe separate bathrooms. They have many bedrooms. They have many, many rooms. You can live in both of these houses. You can sleep, you can eat, you can relax in both of these houses. One just happens to be bigger and more complicated than the other. So, prokaryotes and eukaryotes pretty much do the exact same thing. They both are very successful types of cells. One just happens to be bigger and more complex than the other.